Hello and welcome to our podcast, Tales from the Cyber Lab. My name is Adam Myers. I'm joined today by Stuart Coulson. Thank you for joining us, Stuart.
Okay.
You're from HiddenText, and we're going to be discussing today around cyber leadership as a CISO. Just a quick introduction for any frequent subscribers. I'm a new host, but I'm the sales director at Cyber Lab, and I've worked in technology and cybersecurity for around 14 years. And I'm going to be bringing you all the latest guests in this space of technology and cybersecurity. But Stuart, just tell us a little bit about what you do and your role, please.
Yeah, so Stuart Coulson, director, owner of HiddenText, which is my own consultancy. I'm also this fits on a business card in little tiny letters, Cyber Ecosystem Project Manager for the University of Manchester. Essentially making Manchester the home of cyber. I wish they'd just put that on the business card. It would have fit a lot easier. But yeah, I've been, that fantastic question of how long have you been in cyber is always a tough one, because I turned 50 last year. And so yeah, I've been in for a long time. My first ever job was on a Windows 3.11 machine with a 56k dial-up. For those who don't know what that is, go look up a floppy disk. But yeah, I've seen and done most of what we have in the industry, which is, it's good because it means that when you sit down in a leadership position, you know the pain that's going on the actual floor.
Yeah. I think that's going to be relevant for today, isn't it? Understanding the challenges that probably leaders are facing, and cybercrime is on the rise, and what can they do to prevent things from happening. So I guess the first topic leads us on nicely is why business leaders need to rethink cybersecurity. So the question I've got is, why is cyber no longer just an IT issue? And how can CISOs help business leaders truly understand their role in cyber resilience? So
it's an interesting topic, and it's one that I'm really passionate about, because I think I've long seen from the other side as well, cyber's lived in an ivory tower, hand grenaded out policies, thou shalt do, or thou shalt not do. And it's always been seen as this almost kind of an angry place in the business, that where all good ideas go to die, because you're not allowed to do that, because, well, we have to do this on a firewall, and then there's this, and there's a million excuses get thrown out. So cyber's always been the blocker. Whereas where I prefer to see it is cybersecurity as an enabler. And it sounds very cliche to say that, but I mean, you count the practical side of it. So in my last role as a deputy CISO, the first thing we led was comms. So rather than doing security awareness, long strong passwords, we started with awareness of security. So this is the security function. This is what we do. This is what we don't do. So we were very clear in understanding, that's an IT issue. This is a cyber issue. It then meant that when people kind of had problems, or where they wanted some advice, they were going and speaking to Dave and Rachel and the whole team. We had the names were there that people could relate to. It also meant that instead of going, damn people in cyber, they've stopped me from doing this. It's a bit harder to say when it's Adam. It's a little bit harder to have a go at someone. Is it actually in a name? So leading by and having that the personalities in there, and also humanizing cyber. We live behind every letter on a Scrabble board. And we've gone way beyond XDR, MDR now. We're way into the crazy stuff now, because we've got AI. We can throw all the extra layers. AI XDR, let's have that one out there. And because of that, it takes what we actually do out of the equation. And I find that quite challenging, actually, because we do a lot of good stuff. We really do fight hard on the coal face, and we don't see that recognition enough. So let's explain things in human terms. It's no longer an XDR, it's the thing that protects your laptop. Let's take away the jargon speak, and they say, we've known this for years. We just don't do it. So for anyone who's looking as an aspiring CISO, or if you're in a senior leadership team and things aren't working, strip it right way back. What is it you do? We're here to protect the business. We're here to protect the data, and speaking those business words. Forget the cyber language. It's not an interesting language.
So simplifying in a way as well. And also, I do think that cybersecurity is just as much about sort of enablement and functionality. It's not all about sort of bunkering everything down and locking things away. And
100%.
And I think that mindset shift, like you said, is something that a business can hopefully learn from. We've gone through that process ourselves. So I guess, the CISO must translate threats into sort of business language, and I guess, challenges and how we overcome them, and take that to the board in that method as well, I think so.
If you take the recent example, for those who are watching this in the future, Marks and Spencer have been hit very recently by a criminal collective, and let's be clear with language, hacker and criminal. So the criminal collective has hit Marks and Spencer's, and it's a live incident right now. But what's the point in calling them scary spider? What does that mean to anybody? What you want to say is there's a team of teenagers who've been able to dupe human beings to click a link, and that has caused this. Everyone now understands that. We're all going to go, oh, poor person who had to click the link. You know, I hope they're all right, because immediately we would move into defensive, because that's human to human. If it's scary spiders maliciously sends a phishing email which causes a cross-act, everyone's bored. No one's listening to you. You know, and when you talk to the rest of the business about this, well, if I'm speaking in that language, well, go fix it then. You're the one who has to deal with scary spider. We don't deal with that. That's somebody else's problem. And I think that's, again, it's part of this leadership function. It's our job as in the top trait to speak to the rest of the business in their terms. If you want a really interesting thought process on this one, have a look in your own organizations. You've probably got Azure sat there, so you've got out there, you've got your tenants for SharePoint, you've got a OneDrive, you've probably got someone out there that's also using Dropbox, someone out there is also probably Sync, and someone else is using iCloud because they've got an iPhone through work. And the first thing we do in cyber is must lock all these down. You're only allowed to use SharePoint. The question I would ask is, well, will that work on an iPhone? Do they know how to use that? Are we educating people on these things? So rather than hand grenades out the policy, no, we only use this single vendor, go and speak to the business and go, why do you use Dropbox? Oh, well, it works with this software. It integrates directly in. It doesn't work with OneDrive. You go, good point, keep using it.
And that's shadow IT formed out of those processes where people need functionality to work and operate. But just going back a little bit around the cyber awareness piece, we actually do a live hack, which I think translates that message really well. So we, our pen test team essentially create online content to try and make that easy to understand, because I think we are at risk of just overcomplicating something. We work in the industry, we're familiar with certain language, but as that education piece around a business, I think the live hack is a really good way just to translate how we bypass MFA, how QR codes are now sort of on the rise in car parks, for example, and application authentication and stuff like that is on the rise. So again, we're trying to do a little bit of that. So I think it's really good that you've actually mentioned that, which is...
I'll give you a shout right now. It's a good one. I've seen it. I saw it recently. What I like is that you're demonstrating it to, I think it was at DTX the last saw it. DTX the last saw it. The audience are techies, but that doesn't necessarily mean they speak a techie language.
I agree.
Their specialism may not be an hour field. They may be a back-end developer. They still need to know the same story in the message. So it's a good life hack, actually. Well done.
We've got a few coming up, so check out Secure Tour. Nice plug there. Thank you, Stuart. Well done. So what does great cyber leadership look like? So I'll open this question to you. What for you is good cyber leadership in an organization?
When the business comes back to you, that would be your first indicator that you're getting things right. So in other words, we're communicating a way outwards, which means that we are no longer seen as the threat. In our world, we talk about cybersecurity and threats and threat actors. We can be our own threat actor in the business. If we are always blocking, then no one will come to us with the problems. So when people come to us, early stage, we're thinking of doing this. What do you think? Now you know that you're working, you basically got the business on your side. So I'd say from a leadership perspective, if you're communicating their language and they're now coming to you, you're on the starting point, right? I would say the second piece of that is when people can name your team. And that's something which, I've been stood here watching your own team working. You get to know the characters in a team, and we all work with individuals. So someone may prefer to speak to Claudia rather than to Danny, because Claudia happens to have an accent close, or is from my hometown. So I'll go to Claudia instead of Danny. But now that we've opened a pathway there. So when someone gets a phishing email, they'll go, "Hey Claudia, I've got an email. Could you just look it out for us?" No problem. And that's it. You've now opened that doorway, rather than, I don't know if it's a phishing email or not, I'll just leave it.
Ignore it.
And it gets ignored. So I think from a leadership perspective, your team should be as visible as you are to the board, but the team should be as visible out to the rest of the organization.
I think we were talking just beforehand around sort of communicating without scare tactics
Oh.
as well. And I think you touched on this quite well. So I don't know if you want to just expand on that, but I thought it was quite interesting from.
Oh, isn't it so scary having cybersecurity? The hackers are here. They're going to come to take over the world. Worse than AI. We're going to, and then it's just taking my credit card details and assume breach. We have all this rhetoric, and yet none of it helps.
Yeah.
We've been saying it for decades, and really, the start is in 1969. The first password was set. So it's been our problem since 1969, and we're still talking about it now.
Yeah.
So I want to see a shift now whereby we don't talk in these, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and actually just, dare I say, take the fluffy bits out and go and speak back in the 101s. What does this actually translate as?
Yeah.
For example, if you've got a ransomware attack, only a small portion of business knows what that means. They've got a big red screen and it's saying, you're doomed unless you pay me £1 million.
Yeah.
That's written in that user's speech, not in a techie speech. Yet we go and try and solve it by saying to the organisation, everyone go home, we're dealing with a cybersecurity incident, with a ransomware, with a threat actor called, and it's like, what does any of that mean?
Yeah.
And actually our language is quite scary. Even our threat actor names sound scary.
Yeah.
Why don't we just call it, we think it's this nation state, we think, we're not sure. Well, at least someone can go home and go, oh, it was Manchester that tried to attack me today.
One of our partners is really good at that. So Vicarious, so just again, a patch management solution, automated patch management, and they actually kind of like create them into sort of cartoon characters.
Yep.
But I think it's a really good piece just to communicate how, we can actually simplify things. And, I remember them a lot more from just the way they give them like a superhero outfit or, if it's the other way around, a baddie outfit. So
Absolutely.
I do think, you're onto something there, I think, in terms of that educational piece as well. So just around embedding cyber into your organization, I think this is something that's good. So what does it mean to embed cyber into an organization's DNA?
Yeah.
And why does this matter, I guess?
For everyone out there, shift left. We're already aware of that one. And for those who don't know what that means, if you've got a project and you draw it on a Gantt chart, the very left-hand consideration is always, have we got the resource, have we got the time, we're going to do agile or waterfall, and etc. There should be a security consideration at the beginning.
Yeah.
So to embed it in a project is one thing, but you're almost forcing the issue.
Yeah.
You want the project manager to say, okay, so we're doing this, we're doing that, okay, and the cybersecurity team, you want that to be part of the natural pattern, not a forced discussion. So to do that, you need to have, as a culture, is the piece that we're leaning into here. So we want project managers, product owners, we want these people to understand the value of security being here, rather than later on, when you realise you've got to unwind everything, stick it in the middle, and then put it back in. I argue the case that security isn't a bolt-on. It isn't something you stick on the outside of something. It's actually in the fundamental, it's in the core of something. Security development lifecycle, SDLC, it's in the embedding in the code. It's not something you add later. So all of this, it's a security wrapper, wrong language. It's not a bolt-on. This is a core thing. So you don't want to build. If you're making a burger, you don't want to get to the end and go, oh, I forgot the onions.
Best bit.
Yeah. Unwind and add onions and put it all back together again. And this is exactly what we've got a problem with. So let's try and get the conversation the earliest possible, but make the organisation be asking us about cybersecurity consideration.
Yeah, that's good. And I think it's getting teams talking, isn't it? I see, when we talk to a lot of clients, there's, you got to go and talk to that team or go and talk to that team. And I think if we use the burger analogy, it's kind of bringing all those layers together to create a great burger. I won't plug any burger companies at that moment in time, but I think you're right. And I think simplifying that is definitely something that's good. You mentioned a little bit earlier about startups. Is there maybe they bolt it on a bit too late? Do you think that sort of should be part of their sort of, as they, because what I see is a startup is probably one of the biggest risks if they get it wrong, because it could be, sadly, that business could go bust fairly quickly if they don't take cybersecurity seriously. So I know there's ways that we can do that in different OpEx models. So, keeping costs more in a monthly, way of doing things. Do you see that, especially in startups, that they need to
100%
consider security?
100%. So I deal with cyber startups as my day job. So I'm doing a lot of mentoring with them, and the cybersecurity startups as well. When they're bootstrapped, and that means they're paying with the, do I pay the mortgage or do I put money into my business? When they're at that level, can you spend £5,000 on a security product? The answer is no. So they'd rather spend that on dev to try and get the product built to then make £1 million, then buy the security products to then put it on around the business. By which point it's generally too late. For some of these startups, it really is. It's too late. We've seen some really good startups be attacked because what they're working on is interesting.
Yeah.
When you were dealing with cybersecurity startups, it's even more so. We've got an organisation based at the hub I work at. They're doing a large behavioural model. They're working out how you move different to me and use that as an authentication piece. Imagine the cybersecurity they're going to need. Because if someone can crack how they're doing that, all of a sudden, when that technology gets embedded into government, into the NHS, you can fake people up.
Yeah. We did a really good game actually at Dish. I know you've been part of sort of Manchester Digital and Dish and whatnot. And it was around, it was like a little game of when you should sort of, you do your sort of cyber awareness training and all these little things. And we made it quite easy to understand. And I think one of the biggest risks was like not having a plan or an incident response plan. And these things that don't really have a huge cost sometimes, and it's not always cost that stops that. So I think it's just having that ability just to maybe get some plans in place early doors, understand it. It's not always, like you said, the multi-million-pound tools to defend you. It's sometimes it's just the basics that people don't consider, do they? Because they think it's maybe right to them. Yeah.
I'd like it if you ever set a business up. I mean, the start this morning was 16 minutes to set a business up now.
Oh wow!
So in that 16 minutes, I've now got a limited trading business. I'd like that information pack that arrives that says, have you got an accountant? Have you got cyber insurance? How are you looking at cyber essentials? Here's your 25 documents that are based on the basics and fundamentals. Why don't we have that? I mean, that should be something we can already knock out because it's there. We already know what this stuff is. Do you have a password manager? Step 1, get a password manager. This guidance is there. We need startups to be doing it on day one. And whether you're doing a cybersecurity startup or a burger startup, this burger analysis is going to go around.
I do like burgers, so we've gone on a bit of a tangent.
Awesome. But yeah, or if you're making chess, chess pieces, it doesn't really matter. You should still have that consideration on day one of your business. If you looked at it, at least then you go, it's in the back of your mind. And when you get the budget point, you go, right, okay, I can afford that now. We are quite lucky and spoiled, I suppose, that Microsoft done a really good job of putting security into their products full stop. That does come with that. You lose sight of it then, well, it's already taken care of. No, there's a lot more to be done on top. And you're right, policies, procedures, simple stuff, the free stuff. People should be doing that on day one. 100%.
We're actually in a bit of an incentive at the moment around cyber essentials and trying to get more smaller organizations, using cyber essentials. And we were kind of building that into, endpoint protection and kind of almost covering the cost there. So it's just something for anyone listening, maybe reach out to some of the team because there's things we can do to kind of get you on that journey. And, you might be working to things like ISO 9001 or 27001 or Cyber Essentials Plus. Those compliance regulations that you're trying to follow, we can kind of help you on that journey from
100%.
a cost and budget perspective.
I'm a really big fan of Cyber Essentials. I know it gets a really bad rap. I think it's superb. If you're a large enterprise, super large enterprise, like a household name, can you prove you can do Cyber Essentials? I'm going to guess some of them are going to say no. They can get ISO 27 because it's on this scope here. But can the entire operation prove they could do the basics? And generally, no. And that's kind of scary. Maybe that's why people like M&S have got hit, is because there's something missing in the fundamentals.
Right, we lead on to topic number 4. So what should leaders know about insider threats and how can they better manage the human side of cyber?
Wow. Insider threats are a really tough conversation because I basically have to sit as a CEO of a company and go, you could be my criminal. And that's really hard because it then creates suspicion around an organization. I see it slightly different. I think that insider threat is something you need to be aware of, you need to plan for, and you have to be aware of who in your organization are likely to become an insider over time. So, for example, if there's a restructure within an organization, your disgruntled employee level can become that insider threat. I also think there is a huge layer in there, and time's proven this several times over. There's the accidental insider threat. The one who clicked the link by accident, they didn't mean to. It was in a hurry, clicked it. I think I just clicked a link. It's these things happen. There's an incident that happened recently where I saw someone send an email. Literally, the drag and drop of the email addresses went one box up and they went to CC, not BCC. 417 email addresses. It's a cybersecurity incident in our world. To them, it was literally 3mm on the screen.
Yeah.
And it was so easy to do. But yeah, I think the insider threat is a really interesting problem, because for most organizations, when you hit a certain threshold, you don't know all of your employees.
Yeah.
When you're small, you can name everyone in that office right now.
Yeah.
But when you suddenly get 100 people, can you name 100 people's names? Do you know who they are? Do you know their background? Do you know who's having a good day, a bad day? Who's got a gambling addiction? Who's the person who's got the outside personal problems that may drive them? I'm going to steal something from Jenny Radcliffe, because I think it's something which helps when you think about it's a good acronym. So it's money, ideology, coercion, and ego. Generally, that's what an attacker is going to come at you with. One of those four is their motive. If you then look at your organization, I'm going to look at our cameraman behind the screen. Hello. If we take this chap here, what would his be? So he probably wants a new camera. So we've now got money as an objective. Maybe ideology. Maybe he doesn't want to do video podcasts, just want to do audio podcasts because he's fed up with filming. So there's another one in there. Coercion. Maybe the chap sat next to him is going, no. Let's not do podcasts. Let's do something else. So and then there's also the ego. Is like, I was the guy that wrecked the podcast. So I'm talking very simply in this. When you scale that up to nation state size, they can supplant someone in your organization. And I do suspect we have got them already in the UK infrastructure here and critical national infrastructure that are sat there, nation state threat actors, sat on our networks right now, doing the day job, probably doing a good job as well. Yeah. But they are an insider threat. They are using it because of a coercion factor that if you don't, then your family may be in trouble. Yeah. Doing ideology, I stand for my nation state and all that kind of stuff. Maybe doing it as an ego, saying, if I can help my nation state, therefore, or they're being paid to do it. And, it's kind of scary. So how do you find it is the hard part. Yeah.
I think linking back to the previous episode, for those that were maybe listening on, Force Point, we had another Stuart on. Discussing around insider threat and how we can risk and profile people and risk score people when they start doing things at, say, 3 a.m, accessing files they shouldn't be. But those tools do come at a cost. But I think for larger organizations, insider threat is real. And it's definitely something that enterprise and public sector space that you should consider definitely looking at. But is there anything else you think around motivation, or I think we're going to lead on to a bit of hacktivism potentially.
Let's leave that one for a moment. Just on that one there, you said about the enterprises. Can I just remind people that if you're a small organization who has interesting data, you are also a target. Let's not discount the small GP who's got everyone's medical records for where we are here in the Northwest. That's a lot of data someone holds. Schools have a huge amount of data on children, which can then indicate parents, which then can indicate a lot of others. If you picture, let's just use in the UK as an example, you've got Cheltenham. If you've got all the grammar schools in Cheltenham get compromised, their parents, highly likely, they're going to be working in a certain building in the Cheltenham area or related services. You've now got that as a layer, but schools don't have multi-million-pound budgets to protect themselves. So smaller organisations, for me, who've got juicy data, and it's up to you to define whether you've got juicy data or not, that's something to be aware of.
And just your experience from working at Manchester University, I guess education and syllabuses and what we're teaching, and that becomes a bit of a hot topic around nation state attacks and trying to gain access to what we're educating universities and whatnot on. That is a big risk, isn't it? And what can be done, I guess, in terms of how we go about sort of approaching that, because it's all our interest, isn't it, to try and keep that information.
Absolutely. The syllabus in the UK, it's defined by each university uniquely. So everyone writes their own. There's no one cybersecurity course that we all deliver. Everyone does their own different flavours of it. University of Manchester, very different actually. We were talking about this earlier, that our cybersecurity is based in the humanities department. It's not a cybersecurity in a technical discipline. It's a humanities discipline. Of course, that's going to get the eyes of the world, because that's misinformation and disinformation. That's how people are pushing messages at the moment. So if you can break our syllabus and you can maybe change some of the content of it, it gets taught differently. What we're quite adept at is we've got specialists who are working in that field. They'll know when things have changed on the slide deck. But that still doesn't stop us having people in the audience in the university. And this goes for all universities, not just University of Manchester. We're training them up. We are training up our threat actors. And that's been known for years, because we do it as a nation. We do it as well. But yeah, it's a fascinating topic. I mean, this is one that you can go down a rabbit hole sheer just on this one topic alone.
Yeah. Maybe for a future podcast, but good. So hacktivism, AI, and what's next for the boardroom? So what trends should business leaders keep an eye on, and how can they prepare for what's next, I guess?
So this is where I reach for the crystal ball and I wonder what's coming up next. I think, let's start with hacktivism.
Yeah.
At the moment, the world geopolitical system is wrecked. We all know it. You don't even have to turn the news on to have the discussion about it. With that comes people who go back to our mice from before, ideology. They're going to be pro or against, or against. And so those people are going to come with a motive to attack. And that's where we've now got a problem. We are starting to see the hacktivist groups who, they may not be nation state attackers, they're doing it off their own bat. And we're seeing this with the Ukraine-Russia war. There are small groups of people in the UK and in Spain and in France who are acting on behalf of Ukraine to attack Russian infrastructure. They're just doing it because it's the hacktivist thing to do. We're kind of lucky that Anonymous as an outfit, they calmed down a lot of their action. They're still there, they're just in the background. But I do expect probably the next 2 years, we're going to see a very big resurgence come forward, especially as we see more wars happening, because with that brings the hacktivists. It's a simple way for you to get involved in somebody else's conflict rather safely from the comfort of your own nice country. I think that's definitely one that we need to be aware of. So if you're in a service, in an organization whose products relate to those countries or to those services, definitely put your guards up. Start being aware of your messaging, and if someone comes back at you with negative messaging, just be aware that could be a hacktivist group that's now starting to profile you. Secondly, we have to say AI. It appears that if you don't say AI, the tech industry disappears at the moment. So AI, it's like saying Alan Turing in Manchester. Well, Manchester disappears. AI is not going to go away. The question is how we're going to work with it. I use AI extensively. It's a brilliant tool. It's helping me a lot with the third voice. So we have our own internal monologues of how we think. But what about the other voice of reason out there? The other one is just sheer creativity. I need to write something, don't know my starting point. Knowing what I'm putting into these systems and where that is then using the data on is the most critical conversation a business should be having right now. If you use ChatGPT, who else is reading what you type into it? And it's okay if you're cognizant here because we're in security, but if Dave in accounts is just put in, hey, I've got an invoice that's coming from this supplier, I'm not quite sure if this value looks right. Does that look a ballpark number? Who have you just told? And I think that's something which not enough businesses are thinking about at the moment. What's happening to our data?
But it probably goes into what you're actually feeding it there, aren't you? Because you might be putting sensitive company information into these tools and you're not really policing it, or there's no policy behind it. And I think as it's become this sort of new technology to some extent, that's happening, I think, more than we think, isn't it? And that's a risk, especially.
We've got a cybersecurity tool with AI, but does anyone know what's happening to that data when it goes into there? I mean, if you were to be a nation state, let's play the bad guy right now. We are now a bad guy country, right? We're going really bad guy country. We're really bad. We've got a nation state attacker. So we've now got a military that's creating cybersecurity companies. So they're all there, and those tools are being implanted everywhere. All you have to do is literally walk into the boardroom as a nation state leader and say, give us some of this data. Now, as an endpoint user, we're using this technology. It's securing our business. It's going through an AI tool, and look at all this extra stuff. Guess what? Your data's going straight into a foreign state government. Not enough people think like that. Think like a criminal. Literally think like a criminal. If you can't, hire someone who can think like a criminal for you. Stick it on the tabletop exercise. What happens if our data gets leaked to this country here because someone's using an AI tool that we don't know where the data goes to? Sort of deep seek.
So I guess it probably leads into a little bit around like data loss prevention tools, because I guess that probably where I see, you mentioned the email and BCCing somebody in, and it could be, you're putting the same thing into a AI tool. It needs to probably link, doesn't it? Your DLP solution in with sort of AI sort of policies and whatnot, because I think it's just even easier by accident to leak something without really understanding what you're doing, I guess, is probably...
That comes back to the unintentional insider threat that we talked about before. The person who's using these tools because they're struggling at their job, they haven't got the right training for whatever reasons, they're using the tools around them, which are publicly available and free, and suddenly they become the unintentional leak. Yeah, it's really interesting. Looking at the shows now, I'm looking forward to InfoSec this year. I'm looking for the DLP AI solution. I want to see the DLP solution that targets very specifically who's putting into which LLM, what data. I'd be really interested to see if there's anyone out there doing it. I've not seen anything on the market space, but I think that's one of the big tools that will become something of importance in the future.
And how it sort of integrates sort of API-driven data into that model. I think that could be the next big technology shift, I think. I know Forcepoint will touch upon that a little bit in the previous episode, so I think watch this space, but it's definitely going to be good. So that concludes our podcast. Stuart, thank you so much. That was one of the most interesting podcasts I've been a part of. Is there anything you want to say before we maybe conclude things?
Yeah, I think the wrap up for me is, if you're looking at cybersecurity for your own business, don't be scared about it. Ask for help. Don't wait till you've got an incident to then go and get the list of names of people going, who do I phone up? Get them today. Speak to someone like yourself. Speak to, maybe not our cameraman, but speak to yourself. You might be an insider threat. But yeah, get the list of names. Then when you have an incident, you know who to phone. You've got the names already. You've got a relationship with them to say, hey, Adam, look, we may be under attack here. Help. It makes the conversation quicker, easier, and you'll get your resolution quicker. Definitely stick that in day one. If you're an established business, you've got your cybersecurity and everything's hunky-dory, change your messaging. Start talking to the board in their terms. For me, that would be the two critical things. And as you mature as a small organization into a bigger organization, don't lose that language patterns. Keep speaking human. Adam, I've got a problem, not I've got an XDR problem, because it's just speaking English because it's quicker. And as I say, as you get mature into the enterprise layer, when you're in that big business, keep that up. Keep public internally within your business to who's the who, what you're doing, why you're doing it. There's the three things that Simon Sinek will be proud of this one. What is it you do as a business? Who do you do it for? Why do you do it? If you think about that as a cybersecurity function, we're here to protect data at rest and in transit. Who do it for? Everyone internal, all of our customers, all of our supply chain. Why do we do it? Because we care. It's our job function to care about data and to get all the other employees around us to care about data too. That's my wrap.
Yeah, thank you, Stuart. That was an amazing episode. As I said, join us at our Secure Tour. We've got 3 locations, so Manchester, Edinburgh and Belfast. But yeah, thanks for listening to our episode of Tales of the Cyber Lab. We'll be back next month with a brand new episode. But for now, stay secure.